Don't ignore this on your RC car. You will destroy it. After wrecking my Traxxas Rustler at the skate park in my last video, I repaired the shocks, including refilling the shock oil, and took care of what I thought was everything else wrong with it. But I failed to notice one small problem that led to a lot of others. I'm at the hobby shop right now because I bought the wrong bottom spring retainer for my Rustler. I got the one for the GTR shocks, and my Rustler has the Ultra shocks. There's just a slight difference, but I'm worried that that spring retainer is gonna come loose because it doesn't fit quite right. And I also noticed that that screw that was coming out of the axle doesn't thread in. It actually has a little tiny piece welded onto the other end of it that breaks off really easily, and I lost that, and I have no way to reattach it even if I did have it. So I need to find one of those as well. For some reason, this hobby shop doesn't carry Traxxas vehicles, but they have lots of Traxxas parts, so hopefully they have the right ones for me. So I got the parts. The man at the counter was very helpful, and he pointed out that I actually don't need the whole outer stub assembly for the drive shaft. I just need the clip. So I bought the whole variety pack of clips, and hopefully that fixes the issue because he didn't have the whole outer stub assembly in stock. Apparently it's like a really rare part. And boom, just like that, the Rustler is all put back together and ready for another rip. You can see that here I put some glue where that C-clip would have been before I got the new C-clips, because I didn't know that I could even buy those. And I wasn't able to get a new C-clip on there because of that glue. But if that glue does come off and that pin does come out, I have the spare C-clips to just snap one on there and keep running it. The spare parts bag is getting pretty full. During my recent live stream, link to that in the description, I stripped the spur gear on my Traxxas Rustler. That was bad. If you look closely, you can see that the teeth have been quite worn down. So now I have to replace that. But if you look on the bottom, these two screws, which I have to take out to get to that gear, have been completely stripped from the chassis rubbing up against asphalt and curbs. So I've got to figure out a way to get those out. You can see that the correct size Allen key just free spins in that hole. And the bigger size Allen key that Traxxas includes is way too big to fit in the stripped out hole. I managed to find a different size Allen key that fits perfectly in the stripped out hole on this screw. I'll put that in my professional screw holder. Now it doesn't want to come off the Allen key. The Allen key, however, is not fitting the other screw. And none of the others I tried do either. Okay, so I found the solution to getting that Allen key in there. I had to round out the hole a little bit more, which I know seems counterintuitive, but then all I did was take the hammer and lightly pound on the Allen key to make a new hole. And it's a little bit wiggly, but I think it'll work. Yeah. And there we go. I got the back end separated. And there it is, the stripped gear. You can see the pieces of plastic that were stripped off. So let's get that swapped out for a new steel one. I'm gonna run to the hobby shop and see if I can find a steel spur gear. If not, then I'll just get the cheap plastic one and we'll go from there. And boom, I'm back with the part. I was going to get multiples, but they didn't have any more. I got the last one. It was a whole $3.21 with tax. That is by far the cheapest I've gotten away with a repair so far. The reason I didn't upgrade to a steel gear was, one, because it was way more expensive. It was like $20. And I also read that the steel gears are louder And the reason they use the plastic gears is so that if something happens, it'll just strip that gear instead of breaking everything else. Now all I have to do is figure out how to get all this back together. So I've got some bad news. I seem to have lost the bearing that goes on this piece right here. And I don't know if it's important or not. All right, well, I couldn't find the bearing, but I don't even remember seeing that when I took this apart. So maybe this one doesn't come with the bearing. This looks like it'll work. I'm not sure how far to tighten that bolt down, how much tension to put on this spring, but this looks good. Okay, I think I found the bearing that I needed to have. It was still stuck here in the chassis, and I think it can stay there, and this assembly will just slide right onto it. Check that out, it's all back together and working great. A stripped spur gear is exactly what put an end to my last RC truck from Amazon. And it was actually a metal spur gear, but I couldn't get a replacement for it because it was such a small brand, and they went out of business like shortly after that truck broke, I believe. So it was great that I was able to get a replacement spur gear for this and get it back up and running. I brought the truck outside to test it, and if I did everything right, nothing will strip and nothing will burn up. It sounds normal. Oh yeah, works great. Let's see if we can do a wheelie. There we go. I might have tightened the slipper clutch actually a little too much. Tons of torque again. Man, that is a lot of power. I just got back from doing a live, and during the live, I stripped the spur gear again. You gotta be kidding me. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's totally stripped. I literally just put that spur gear in there. I probably over tightened the slipper clutch, so I definitely need to loosen that when I swap the spur gear out. I just got the new spur gear for my Rustler. I decided to go straight for the metal gear. I got these steel gears. They come in a 2-pack made by Hobby Park from Amazon. There's a link to that down in the description. And then I also got the aluminum bearing adapter that Traxxas makes, and it comes with a new bearing. The old one's probably full of sand by now. Link to that in the description as well, because I read that the metal gear can cause some extra heat in the transmission. So I figured it would be good to swap out the plastic bearing adapter for the aluminum one to avoid it melting. I'll get these new parts in, and then the truck will be ready to rip again. Update. So I've taken the truck apart and put it back together multiple times now. The first time I tried to put it back together after popping that metal gear on, I realized that the nut had been cross-threaded. It was either the nut or the shaft that it goes on was cross-threaded. So I had to pick up a new nut to put on there, and at first I got the wrong size, so I had to return that, go back to the store, and get the right one. And that still didn't fit quite right on there because I realized the shaft was cross-threaded as well. But I was able to squeeze it on, and it cut some new threads onto the shaft, unfortunately. But once I got it all back together, I realized that the metal gear was rubbing against the grub screw on the pinion gear on the motor. So then I had to take that whole assembly apart, and what a pain that was, because the nut was on so tight, and it was even harder to get it back on after I had fixed it. I had to slide the whole assembly down the shaft by moving the pin that holds it all on, and then when I put that back in, everything was too tight. So you can see now that the truck doesn't roll, like at all. Something's binding up, and it could be that this drive shaft is too tight. It could be that there's not enough play in the mesh here. It could be that there's not enough play in the mesh here. I'm not really sure. But I also remember that the drive shaft was slightly bent, and I didn't think that it was causing an issue. But I guess that's what started this whole thing. And the shaft that holds the spur gear on also has a slight bend in it. So I'm gonna replace the drive shaft, get a whole new slipper clutch assembly, throw that in there, and hopefully that works. It also seems like the pinion gear has been chipped, so I'm just gonna order another one of those to be safe. You can clearly see that the drive shaft is bent, and there's even a groove in it where it rubbed against the tie rod that sat above it. I'm finally done putting all the parts in, and man, what a nightmare this whole ordeal has been. What started with just a bent drive shaft ended with the most expensive and lengthy repair I've ever done on this truck. Here's the finished product. I like this orange drive shaft actually a lot better than the blue one. It still has that wiggle that the old one did, but I'm assuming that that's there on purpose. I've left the transmission cover off just so that I can see if anything goes wrong while we test it, and then I can put it back on. Okay, here it goes. Well, it's running all right, but it is making a funny noise, I think. See if you can hear that. It might be where that grub screw is rubbing against the spur gear, but it shouldn't be doing that. I still don't see anything wrong, so I'm going to throw the transmission cover on and see if we can't get it to rip then. I'm going to throw the old clutch assembly pieces, including the metal gear, back in the bag because most of them are still usable. All right, actually it sounds pretty normal now. I think the transmission cover kind of deafens some of the sound. Maybe not. Okay, I'm just gonna rip it full throttle and see what happens, I guess. Well, it did all right. I think that slipper clutch assembly that I got from Traxxas is definitely a little loose because it doesn't wheelie at all, but it seems to be going pretty fast. Yep, so that's all that sound is. Great. That's gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and please learn from my mistake. I let one small problem go because I was too cheap to replace the part, and it ended up destroying a whole lot of other parts. So when you see one part broken on your vehicle, whether it's a real vehicle or an RC vehicle, just take care of it immediately instead of trying to cheap out, because it's gonna cost you more in the long run if you let it slide. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you want to see me make more mistakes, click on the playlist on your screen. I look forward to seeing you in my next video.